to Michael and Ronnie. Enjoy that. They say behind every great man there is a woman. Behind Caesar there was Cleopatra. Behind Napoleon there was Josephine. Behind Nelson there was Lady Hamilton. And what happened? The men died and the women lived on and on and on. They say that God created the world. He created the rivers, the mountains, the trees. He created man, and from man he created woman. And since then he's never created anything. Women are very different, actually. For example, you get the two women talking to one another and say, I say, isn't that Mr. Carruthers across the road? Yes, he does. Yes, yeah, She said, doesn't he dress nicely? She said, yes, and very quickly, too. Look at a young lady who has been seduced for the very first time ever in a motor car. Or anywhere else, for that matter. And she begins to weep for things lost. And he said, darling, don't cry. What do you mean? What do you mean don't cry? Ping! You man, ping! Don't ever you said don't cry. I'm going to go home and tell my mommy and my daddy that I have been seduced twice. He said, I've only done it once. She said, you're going to do it again, aren't you? Despite what I say about women, what would we do without you? Despite of your kind of idiosyncrasies or your tantrums or your moods or your beauty, what would we do without you? It would be a queer world indeed. As far as I'm concerned, one of the greatest sources of humor is religion. I don't say it's the safest, but is, to me, the greatest. Because we, the Irish, we do tend to laugh at religion. We don't laugh. We laugh. Otherwise you get a telegram from Rome telling you you're finished. And we have within the Church of Rome what we call a confessional box, which I suppose to people who don't understand is like taking fire insurance. And you get the priest in there, and the young lady comes in there, and she says, Father, she said, I've been terrible sinful. He says, how? She said, I was out with my boyfriend last night. And he kissed me. And he cuddled me. And he made love 5 times. And the priest says, go home, get 7 lemons, squeeze the juice into a glass and drink it. She said, will that take the sin away from my soul? He said, no, but it'll take the smile off your face. Actually, in telling gags about religion, I often wonder whether God has got a sense of humor. I hope he has. I'm in trouble if he hasn't. Mind you, it'd be very hard to tell a gag to, wouldn't he? I mean, you'd start it and he'd tell you the end. And you know something else I think about? Actually, I think about, does God believe in God? I mean, I believe in God, but who does he believe in? And if he doesn't believe in anybody, he's an atheist. And if he's an atheist, he'll never get to heaven. Because old Nick believes in God. And look what happened to him. I often think about what does God look like? And there is only one man who has ever seen God. And I said to him, I said, what does God look like? He said, she's black. One of the most human emotions that a human being can have is the emotion of fear. It is also the most stimulating. For some reason or other, people love to be frightened. And are you surprised, actually, when you think about the stories our parents told us, and we in turn pass on to our own children. We tell them about horrible giants, sinister bogeymen, never sleeping crocodiles with empty tummies, wild wailing wolves and wicked witches who wish to catch little children, cook them and eat them. We create in them a fear of darkness and things that might go bump in the night. And they sit in their little beds with their little eyes wide open and their thumb. That's all they have for security. And they suck it. And then what do? We tell them about the great, long, red-legged scissorman, whose sole purpose in life is to come in and snip the thumbs off thumb-sucking children. And then we tuck them in, give them a kiss, and say, "Sleep well, darling." The Sandman is coming. He will come along and sprinkle sand into your eyes, and you will sleep. Have you ever tried to go to sleep with the thought of some lunatic walking about the house with a big bag of sand? What about humor in the future? You get a fellow working in the mines, and he comes up, and there's nothing. Everything is quiet, still. Houses are wide open, shops, banks, cars litter the streets. And he walks about and there's nobody about. And he gets in a car and he drives right through England, and it's the same way all the time. He goes across to Europe. It's exactly the same in Europe. Nothing. Everything, like everything, has stopped still. Goes right across the continent, the Near East, the Far East, right across to America. Across the continent of America, he gets to New York. Nothing. This takes him 8 years. And he gets to the top of the Empire State Building. And he looks around. And there is no sign of life. And he thinks, that's it. I can't live without thinking of other people. I can't exist on this planet all by myself. I'll jump off and destroy myself. And he jumps off. And on the way down, he hears a phone ringing. But what about comedy in the future? Who knows? Stories that I tell, the ones that I get most enjoyment from, are what we call spooky stories. And tonight I would like to tell what we call a spooky story, but in doing so I would like to create an atmosphere, and if I may, I'd like to ask for the lights to be brought down nice and low, nice and dark. And I would like to ask that camera to come closer, please. There's nothing which interests anybody more than the darkness, because it creates its own atmosphere. And tonight I would like to tell you a story about a young man on a walking holiday in Transvalia. And he walks, and he walks, and as he walks, the sun begins to set, and the darkness begins. And the owl. And in the distance, the howl of the werewolf. And he begins to get cold. Not from the night, but from a sense of evil that might
be about. And eventually he comes to an inn. And he's very glad to find the warmth and the sanctuary of that inn. And he steps in and he said, "Good evening." I said, "Good evening. What would you like?" He said, I would like a glass of the local beer. And they pour it. And just as he is about to drink it, they say, "The wolves are coming! The wolves are coming! Everybody down below into the cellars." And they all run down into the cellars. They shut the trapdoor. And they wait for 20 minutes. And then they say, "The wolves have gone." And they all go back up. And when he gets back, his glass of beer is empty. And they said, "What would you like?" He said, "I'll have a glass of beer, please." Gets the beer, and just as he's about to drink it, the same cry, "The wolves are coming! The wolves are coming!" And down they go back into the cellar. They close the trapdoor. And they wait for a further 20 minutes. And when he comes back again, his beer is gone. And he thinks to himself, "These people, what sort of a fool do they think I am?" And they said, "What would you like?" He said, "I shall have a beer." And he gets the beer, and he's just about to drink it, and they go, "The wolves are coming! The wolves are coming!" He said, "Fine, let the wolves come. You go down to the cellar. I shall wait for the wolves." And they all go down into the cellar. And he sits there. And the wolves come. And they eat him, and they drink his beer.